Well, good afternoon, everyone, at least everyone in Central Time Zone. My name is Ryan Anderson. I'm the Director of Industry Relations for the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and appreciate you all joining us today to talk about the UNL School of Computing's Senior Design Program. This is a embodiment of a collaboration between the Industry Relations Group, which connects the resources of the university with the private sector, and our ever-growing School of Computing, and its work to help to prepare our upper division undergraduate students to be capable and critical thinking employers and leaders, especially with companies that are here in Nebraska. We're trying to keep some of our best and brightest here. And so I think the next slide shows this is the team here, myself, and then Dr. Chris Bond, who is the director of the for the capstone program for School of Computing. Suzanne Spies, the administrative coordinator for industry relations. Mel Kubler-Wright, who's one of the senior design project managers. And then her partner in that, Bill Browning, senior design project manager, and Kara Kubler-Wright, capstone development manager, who is jointly employed by industry relations and the School of Computing to focus on the development and advancement of this great program that really has historically is an excellent value proposition in terms of providing, computing engineered solutions to the sponsor organizations, but also a great education to employment opportunity and somewhat of a protracted relationship, between a group of 5 to 6 computing students and their employer, and we've had some good stories and experiences as far as, both intern as well as full-time hiring that has come out of this experience. But we've also just had some really good outcomes in terms of, technology and overall. And with that, I will turn it over to my colleague, Mel, who will in turn introduce our external panelist.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Ryan. So it's my pleasure to introduce CJ O'Hara, who's with us today as a guest panelist. And he's a graduate of UNL in computer science in 2013. And then he's worked with FireSpring for 6 years, and then he moved on to Huddle, where he's currently employed as a senior engineer since 2020. His involvement in senior design is pretty extensive, so we're gonna let him talk about that. He's been a coach for 4 academic years, and he's currently a sponsor. So yeah, thanks CJ for joining us.
Hey, good morning. No, good afternoon. Sorry. I'm Chris Bone, the School of Computing's assistant director for Capstone. So I'm responsible for our capstone program, which manifests as senior design. So, every engineering program, every computing program is going to have some sort of capstone program. Ours, we choose deliberately to have a very close relationship with industry. We find that the students benefit greatly from it, as do the various companies we work with. So this is a 2-semester project. Well, in general, the projects last 2 semesters, and most of our students take 1 year of capstone, 2 semesters. So they work on a project from start to finish. And that's true for our computer science majors, who are the bulk of our students. It's true for our computer engineering majors, but then our software engineering majors actually take 2 years of capstone. They take senior design in their junior year, and then they take another capstone program. It might be senior design again, just a little bit of different flavor, or it might be a more of an enabling role for the senior design in their senior year. So in general, a given team of students is going to consist of 5 to 6 students. Depending on the particular major, depending on the particular project, depending on what it needs, it'll be a mix of computer science students, a couple of software engineering students, maybe a couple of computer engineering students if the project calls for it. We sometimes also introduce students from other majors. So the School of Computing, besides our 3 majors, well, we just got our 4th one approved, but so besides those majors, we also have a number of minors. So we sometimes are able to bring in students from other majors to work on our projects. For example, right now we've got a student from journalism and mass communications on one of our projects. We've got another student from over in the agriculture and natural resources working on another project. So, we can sometimes bring in an interdisciplinary team into this mix. It's very beneficial to the students, obviously. They have the opportunity to work very closely with industry. They have the opportunity to work on a real project. This isn't just make work for them. This is a project that actually matters. Our various sponsors come to us with something that they would like to see. It probably is not their highest priority, understandably so, but it's important enough that if successful, they'll use it. And so then, like I said, we put these 5 to 6 students, mostly computer science, software engineering, sometimes computer engineering, sometimes other majors, onto the project, and they work at it for 2 semesters. Go to the next slide, please. It's also pretty beneficial to the sponsor. Obviously, it's low cost. Those of you who are in the industry know that what we charge for a project, $20,000 is what we're going to charge next year for a 2-semester project. That is dirt cheap relative to hiring a team that does this professionally. The downside, of course, is by definition, these students are all entry level. Or even pre-entry level. So, there is some risk benefit there. But then at the end of the project, you own the intellectual property. The students will sign a non-disclosure agreement saying that they're not going to divulge anything about your project that you don't want divulged. Part of the agreement you'll have with the university will say that at the end of the project, we'll turn all the intellectual property over to you. So you will own it. And for some sponsors, that's exactly what they want. They're mainly interested in the project. Other sponsors are interested in giving back to the university. So just the opportunity to help out students who, yes, may be future employees. In fact, some sponsors treat this as kind of a 9-month interview process. And I'm perfectly happy with that. And I suspect the students are too. Some sponsors see this as an opportunity to not just give back to the university or to do it as a drawn out interview process. They see it as an opportunity to give back to the whole community. To a rising tide lifts all boats. And so even if the students they work with don't come to work for them, they will improve the talent pool within not just Nebraska, but also anywhere that our students may end up going. Many of our sponsors actually span those 3 areas that they benefit from. I think later you'll hear about one of our sponsors that is kind of our poster child for, they are fantastic sponsors. They are very interested in just giving back to the community to help improve the talent pool. They also hire many of the students that they work with. And out of, I think they've sponsored 5 projects so far, they've deployed 3 of them and are in the process of getting a 4th one ready to go. So they are serious about all of those benefits. And I don't think they feel cheated about it at all. So next slide. So as I said, this is going to be a $20,000 project next year. That financial cost is pretty easy to define. There's also time commitment. So up front, we'll need you to put together a project description. So initially, when you say you're interested, you can just provide a high-level description of here's generally what we want to have in mind, and that can help get the conversation started. But then before the end of before the end of the summer, before the fall semester starts, we'll need you to put together a more detailed project description so the students can read over it, and also put together what we call a pitch video, which is a way for the students to kind of the too long, don't read the full project description. Instead, they just watch the pitch video to try to prioritize which project they would like to work on. So we're going to have close to 200 students next year. And hopefully we have enough projects for all of them. And so because of that, the students are able to go through and prioritize their top 10 projects that they would like to work on. And we do a pretty good job of matching students to projects they're interested in. I think this year we got somewhere around 60% of them on their first choice. And then almost everyone was in their top 3 choices. So you end up not just getting students, you get students actually who want to work on the project that you're working on. And so that pitch video helps with that. It's kind of your opportunity to sell the project to the students. So there's that upfront time commitment. Kind of your steady state time commitment is going to be an hour a week working with the students during their sponsor team, where they'll provide you with feedback or provide you with a status update, and you'll provide them with some feedback. And then periodically they'll provide a release that you can go out and kick the tires on. During the semester break, we'd really like you to get some user testing during that 5 or 6 weeks between semesters. But in general, you're looking at an hour a week. We'll also send you some surveys throughout the year, just to kind of get some feedback from you to our faculty graders on how you think the teams are doing. The faculty graders, or the faculty supervisors, we call them the tribe leads. They do the grading, but we do want to get your input, your insight into how you think the team is doing as well. So, and I think Mel picks up from here.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Chris. So this is how the team is structured. Your project team will have, in the upper left, you'll see the student squad box. And there are, as Chris said, 5 or 6 students typically on every team. And they self-appoint 2 leads or 2 managers, a product manager and a development manager. And of those 2, they identify a squad lead who will be your sort of initial and first point of contact of the student team. The rest are made up, the rest of the team is made up of developers. Over to the right, that's your team, your sponsor team. And there's at least, we asked that there be at least 1 product owner or 1 sponsor representative at every one of our sponsor meetings, that once a week for an hour. And but some sponsors choose to have an entire team of people. They have maybe 2, 3, or I've seen up to about 8 or 10 colleagues that they bring in and meet with the students at these sponsor meetings. You can even bring in partners if you want. If you work with another firm, if you want to bring that person in or those people in, you're welcome to do that too. So it's up to you, between 1 and however many you want to join the team. In the box below is our student support, and we have some pretty extensive support for the students. In the left, we have coaches. So these are industry volunteers. They're really quite excellent. They come typically from local and regional organizations here in Lincoln and Nebraska. Tribe lead, UNL faculty member, that's the role name that we give them. And they're responsible for guiding the students from a classroom and grading perspective. And then project manager, that's the role I have. We bring, Bill and I bring our industry experience as project program managers and working through years of experience managing projects, and we are bringing that to these students to guide them and mentor them in how to run projects. Next slide, please. So just to talk a little bit more about the coaches, we typically have 1 coach for every team. Like I said, they're industry volunteers. A lot of our volunteers come from, they're alum, so they come from UNL. Some aren't, but they're all really, really good. They sign NDAs, and they're a nice addition to the students who, as a unbiased, non-grading support to the students. And they're typically there for either their student team time or for sponsor meetings or both. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is just a quick list of, a lot of our most common technologies, languages, and frameworks used by the student teams, but we're not limited to these. Typically, the sponsors specify which technologies they'd like the students to use, and frequently they they select those that align with their in-house standard architecture and software. So it's pretty seamless to turn over the software at the end of the year. If the sponsor doesn't have an in-house technical staff or doesn't know what they want, the students can discuss options and propose the best technologies for the sponsor. Next slide, please. And this is a list of project types that we have, not a full list again, but these are our most common ones. And I think all of these have been represented in our portfolio in the past academic year or so. But predominantly we have web development projects, and we have some mobile app development, machine learning. We many times have a combination of these types of projects. Okay, next slide. I'm going to turn that over to Bill.
Thanks, Mel. I have the pleasure of talking to you about what makes a successful project. There's really two key components that we see. One on the sponsorship side is team participation. We talked about, the role of the team, the product owner, the role of the student team. It's important that we get that commitment of 1 hour a week, as Chris mentioned, for sponsor meetings, as well as testing and answering questions for the students during the week. They have team times where they meet 3 or 4 days a week, up to 8 to 10 hours a week, outside of the sponsor meeting. And they may have questions during that time that they'll spin off to you. So being able to get those answers back in a timely manner is extremely helpful. The second part of it is, as Chris mentioned earlier, having a project that's scoped correctly. Making sure that your project is sort of at the beginning stages of where it is. It's not on your company's critical path. Something that we can work on the outside that we can fit in come the end of that second semester when we're completed. A project that allows the students to think and kind of get their footprint and hands on it. We talked about the pitch videos and allowing the students to choose the project. Well, allowing them to kind of put in their own spin on what the project is, whether that's the technology, the architecture, of course, all that has to be approved by the sponsor, but allowing them to think through that allows them to feel invested in the project as well. And that gives that leads to them wanting to succeed, wanting to build the best product that they can. Next slide. One of those teams that we want to call out, one of those projects, Chris sort of mentioned that we had a sponsor that's been around for a while. That would be DMSI. They're a project company, out of Omaha. This is, I believe, year 4 that they've been with Senior Design. They've had extremely successful projects in the past. As Chris mentioned, they have a couple already that have been made in production. I think the only one that hasn't isn't in production because it just finished a couple months ago, so they're still working on the integration. Their team this year has already exceeded their expectations, and they're on to phase 2 of the project, which was deemed as a stretch goal coming into it, but they were so successful that they're now making it part of this year's project. What I think makes DMSI a successful sponsor is a multitude of things. One, they have tremendous sponsor engagement. Again, it was mentioned we have some sponsors that sometimes bring up to 8 to 10 employers during these sponsor meetings. DMSI is definitely that one. In fact, I've seen up to 13 or 14 at release meetings. During regular sponsor meetings, they'll have 5, 6, 7, depending on the need and where the students are at. They'll bring other individuals, maybe a UI UX component, maybe some database help, mostly to help answer questions. If there's questions during a sponsor meeting and we have discussion, they have the right people there. They're in our team's environment. They're constantly watching communication. They do get a huge benefit out of working with Senior Design. They have hired, I don't have the numbers anymore. They keep hiring more of our graduates, oftentimes students that have worked on their teams. It's their way of giving back. Next slide. These are a couple of quotes from Jason Nemi, who is their Vice President of Research and Development. essentially what he's talking about is that benefit slide that Chris showed earlier. What does DMSI get out of this? You know, obviously working with the students, they get that altruistic of helping students blossom and learn. They obviously are getting software back in return that's helping them grow as a business. But working with the students is their definite goal for this. Jason mentions that if you go out for one piece of advice for the new sponsor, it would be to clearly define those lanes that the project's living in, define those requirements, making sure that you're setting the students up for success. DMSI is just one example of many that we could throw on here of successful returning projects year after year that have helped senior design grow to what it is.
Okay, hello. So yeah, my name is CJ O'Hara. I work currently as a senior engineer at Huddle, and I have been a coach, like Melanie had mentioned, and now this year I am a sponsor. So I just want to briefly discuss what it was like being a coach, just so you can get an idea of what coaches kind of provide. And then also I will talk a little bit more about my experience as a sponsor. So first of all, for a coach, it doesn't really require technical knowledge. You don't have to be in a technical role, but experience in the technical industry is definitely warranted. Mostly because the technical decisions are led by the student and sponsor teams. The role of coach really is to provide like guidance and feedback in this professional environment. Something that students are only sort of used to at this point. So things like translating workplace communications, kind of critiquing presentations prior to meetings, and just like keeping the students on track for deadlines and trying to like identify what might constitute extraneous pieces of work so they can, you know, lightly or gently push back on the sponsor team. It's been, being a coach is quite rewarding. You get to see the projects come to life. You are there from the beginning, the technical brief, all the way through the deployable, deliverable set of features, and you're going to be the hero. So that's always a great feeling, even with the small little interpersonal work things. And then the time commitment is very minimal. I have done the last couple of them remotely, and it's about 1 or so hours a week, only more so when the students reach out for some help. All right, so for this slide, I'm gonna go off script a little bit. The staff doesn't know this yet. So I wanted to, the contents of the slide are still very relevant, but I wanted to give a better account of like my experiences so far as a sponsor. So first I want to cover like how we at Huddle chose a project. And then I'm going to like walk through and talk through what it's like working with the UNL faculty and staff, as well as the student team. So last summer, when we decided to sponsor Senior Design Project, I met with a few people internally to decide on what we might have the students work on. We came up with a set of guidelines that has worked out well for us at this point. So those 3 guidelines are: 1, choose something that would typically be scoped for a quarter's worth of work. Now that's from the perspective of a software company. If you're not a software company, you might not know what a quarter's worth of work is. Feel free to reach out to the university staff. They are very knowledgeable about scoping projects, and they can absolutely help in that area. Secondly, we chose a project that will not that is not currently on the company roadmap, at least not in the next year. So we didn't want the students to start on something that like another team would be working on in the same time frame. The students will be working at a different pace, and they should be given some autonomy with the work involved. They should be given the power to make some decisions and whatnot. And then finally, and this is a new guideline that I've learned, choose a project that has little obstacle. So granted, there'll be some obstacles. That's what makes it a good project. But I happen to chose a project that also relied on knowledge of our European teams, and they have some good documentation, but it wasn't fully up to date. So we spent a good portion of the beginning part of the semester kind of overcoming those obstacles. So those things could have been avoided, and now I know better for next year. I'll keep the project closer to like our area of expertise on the sponsor side. I want to quickly cover what it's like working with the faculty and staff. It really has been outstanding. They've been responsive to any and all questions. They've provided a lot of insight and helpful resources, especially when it came to like writing the project description and kind of getting the team off the ground. And then they also act as the project management team. We have our own internal project manager, but like they help keep the students on track, and they push back on timelines and kind of sort out some of those project manager roles. And so we've been able to focus on the deliverables and features themselves, and that's been really beneficial. As far as the students are concerned, they are ready and willing to get their hands dirty. They've been excited to learn about our products, services, and customers because they want to build the best software to fit our needs. They are competent developers and have been nothing but professional in our meetings. I also wanted to mention that I've also had the opportunity to work with not only the senior design students, but the students from the RAKES program. And I can confidently say that the senior design students are as technically capable as those on the RAKES program. The biggest difference from my perspective and experience is the amount of hours they're going to be able to put in, and therefore like the project cost for a senior design project is slightly less, or at least different. And then finally, I want to talk a little bit about the biggest benefit possibly is like being able to hire these students. So they're going to be familiar with our code repositories, our internal communication and documentation systems, and they already have a good feel of like what our company culture is like. So we've had the opportunity to work with them over several months now, so it's going to be easy to make that crucial decision whether to hire or not. And I think that'll about do it for me. Thanks.
Thanks, CJ. So if you're interested in getting involved as a sponsor or a coach, our website at Senior Design is a wealth of information and access to links to sign up. So the first step to signing up, as Chris mentioned earlier, is to submit a project request form. This is a high-level form that we have on our website, and it's simply stating that you want to commit to sponsoring a project. This could be done at any time. It takes probably about 5 minutes to fill out, and it's basic information of this is our company, this is our contact person and how to get hold of them, and this is what we'd like to do for a project. It can be high level, it doesn't have to have all the descriptions in it. From that point out, we will guide you through the whole process. We're here to help with every step of the way, and we will send you templates to fill out your full detailed project description. We're all here to jump in on a Zoom call or a meeting at any time, in person or remotely, and help you through the steps that it takes to sign up. We need about 24 projects in the fall, and we need a couple every spring. So we're looking for sponsors every semester. The next step would be to have your legal team or the owner of the project look over the DocuSign agreement and make sure the language is what you want. We have a standard agreement that we send out, and you are able to modify that to your needs, and we'll accommodate most things, including pay terms. And you can sign that and send it in, and then we have you record the pitch video before school starts so that the students can view all the pitch videos when they come to school, which starts August 21st this year. So we are now signing up people for the August 21st start for the projects that would go through until May of 2024. And if you're interested, this is our website, and Melanie has posted in the chat. She's posted the links in the chat, not only to sign up, but to learn more about senior design from what we have on our website, including some other orientation videos and testimonial videos. But when you go to the sponsors page, this is the red button on the right. Just click on that link for the project request and fill it out, and you're in. So with that, I will turn it over to Ryan to talk about a business innovation grant and some help that is there for you as a business in the state of Nebraska financially.
Thanks, Karen. Yeah, there's the Nebraska Department of Economic Development administers some really great funding programs through the Business Innovation Act legislation of 2011, and highlighting the academic R&D grant program, which can be utilized to offset at least half of the cost for one of these projects that you've heard about today with the School of Computing. The process is pretty simple. Some of you have maybe been involved with some of these grant programs. There's an online portal, and I'm going to, I just posted that in the chat, and there's guidelines for this program, and then also the contact information for Ben Kuspa, who's the head of the innovation team, and he's the person that administers the program, and also is the facilitator of presenting the proposals from the companies to their funding panel that makes those decisions. It's a pretty simple online application once you have your scope of work. I think anyone could probably finish the grant application probably in an afternoon, maybe 2 afternoons at the most. And once it's been submitted, Ben or someone on his team will acknowledge it. They may have a few questions, so you can talk through, kind of some consideration of how competitive the proposal is going to be. And from there, it takes, usually they meet every 2 weeks to review and make funding decisions. If it gets in when the queue is long, it can be 4 weeks, but still for a public, grant opportunity, it's really a pretty quick turnaround. And Ben and his team are available for questions in advance of your submission as well. It's really not a situation where they're attempting to, toss proposals out on technicalities. They're truly, the program is, truly intended to advance, university industry relationships within Nebraska for, hopeful bottom line economic development. And so it is a phased program. So a couple things on that, the maximum, it is a matching program. So for projects that are not value-added agriculture, it's $1 for $1, match. And then for those that are considered value-added agriculture, that would be $1 of the applicant for $4 from the state. And both of those, the maximum leverage from the state is $100,000 for a phase 1. The company can bundle projects, so you could potentially, fund more than one project, provided it was focused on the same product or sort of platform technology that your company might be working on. And then there's also some thought around, because it is phased, about maybe, there could be a follow-on or a more robust activity that you're doing with that same commercial product or service, where you could apply after the completion of the first phase for a second phase. And that it's all the same things apply to that, only the maximum leveraged funding is $400,000. So if anybody has any, just real basic questions about that, I'm available. I've worked on dozens of these proposals and worked very closely with Ben and the innovation team over there. So I think that about wraps it up. The eligibility is that there does need to be a full-time person that would be working on the project. and or company operations in Nebraska. It does not need to be headquarters in Nebraska. And it can be anywhere, within the state. There's no specific geographic preference that is there. Those funds are available on the state's fiscal year, which runs from July 1 to June 30. They typically spend out what's available, so it would be advantageous to pursue that funding if you're interested, in doing that and getting things squared away well in advance of the beginning of the next academic year. So with that, first, I did want to note that we are recording today's webinar. Wanted to make sure everybody knew before there were any additional questions that were being asked, and we'll send as a follow-up, there'll be a link that will be provided so that folks can pass it on to colleagues or other partners. So you can use the Q&A function, which is at the bottom of the of your Zoom ribbon next to participants and polls, I believe. Any questions? Okay, so the question came in from Sarah Ehlers. Being a manufacturing town with many engineers, would the School of Computing be able to work with the School of Engineering on a project? I'm going to defer to Chris Bone on
So as with many academic answers, maybe, but no. So I've been chit-chatting with some of my counterparts about the possibility of doing a project that spans departments within the College of Engineering. We haven't made any formal plans for that, but if you have a project that screens, we need computing and mechanical engineers or computing and civil engineers or what have you, I will do whatever I can to make that happen.
Yeah, and so I think, adding on to that, Sarah, pointing out the just so that the folks that are the laptop jockeys also have some folks that are on board that understand manufacturing floor, machine user functionality, and those kinds of things. So yeah, Sarah, we do have there is an ability across the College of Engineering to do this. That was kind of the first thing that needed to be done, just because these are all of these experiences are required, for the degree, but then also the college as well has to comply with its accrediting bodies to ensure that all of these, these experiential and applied learning activities meet their criteria. So it is a possible thing, and we are more than happy, to evaluate those things. Likewise, it was mentioned, I believe, by Chris in his initial comments too, that all of the College of Engineering departments do have capstones, and so if there's something that just is clearly outside of the School of Computing, you're welcome to contact me, and I can help with connecting to other departments. Any other questions? Well, I do want to open up, there is also an opportunity if it would be helpful for a visit. I know that there's a large group, I wanted to thank Sarah and the Columbus Chamber, and also Luke and Kevin at the Lincoln Partnership for Economic Development for disseminating the the webinar today. We're glad to take a visit and have a preliminary meeting if that would be in order. So just let us know if there's interest, and we'd be glad to come out. Jenna Fallhaber asking, are the only opportunities tech development? Is there anything available for requirement documentation?
I'm going to see if I understand that correctly. We don't want our student team to be just a bunch of code monkeys. We expect them to be able to work with you to understand the requirements and to capture those requirements and document them, at least to some degree. For some accreditation reasons, we need them to be able to produce some documentation, and we know that benefits you as well. If you're asking, can they work on that requirements elicitation and documenting it and then working on the project? Absolutely. If you're looking for someone or for a team that is going to do nothing but documenting requirements, I don't think that's really going to be what we have in mind.
And for Jenna and everyone else on the call, to get things started, the level of detail that we need is very, very high level just to start the discussion. And so please don't feel like your project would be counted out. Do please engage us over email or using the web links that are in the chat to our team, so that we can have a discussion about scoping and appropriate sort of contributions by the student teams. There any further? Oh, okay. So there's a follow-up from Gina, as an example, being a large-scale system implementation.
I think I'm just going to have to go kind of echo what Ryan said, which was, give us a call and we can discuss exactly what you have in mind and kind of work from there.
And then also in response, and I don't know whether this is visible to all of the participants or not, but in the Q&A, Shauna Dorsey with Nebraska Tech Collaborative is kind enough to include a link for some resources that are available for those purposes. If you're unable to access that link, you can just put that in the chat and we'll make sure that it goes out in follow-up email. Well, I think that kind of feels like a conclusion. Please feel free, as I say thank you to everyone. Special thanks to CJ for taking your time and providing your perspective as a project sponsor and coach and alum. We really appreciate that, and you continue to be a great partner to the university. And thanks to all the panelists, but especially to the participants. And again, do please reach out. we're glad to consider, what kind of solutions that we might provide, to you, and we're very excited to engage and learn how we can, be supportive of especially Nebraska, businesses, and to provide an avenue into the talent and resources of the university and out of the School of Computing. So with that, I will thank you very much. And we will follow up by email, as I indicated, with the link to the recording that you'll be able to share with others. So I hope you have a good afternoon and take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody.